So I want to go over some interesting information that came out from Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel a couple days ago. I believe it was on Saturday. And it has to do with Brian Gutekunst and some thoughts about the Packers quarterback situation with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love last season. So here it came out in an article at PackersNews.com saying this. At one point late last year, Green Bay Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst told an NFL colleague he was convinced it was time the organization move on from quarterback Aaron Rodgers and see what Jordan Love had in him. Whether Gutekunst was frustrated over the team's mounting losses, realized that Rodgers wanted to start a new chapter in his life, or believed it was Love's time to take over the team isn't clear, but the colleague was certain Gutekunst had given a lot of thought to what the team would look like without Rodgers. So with the current situation right now in Green Bay, wondering what's going to happen with the Packers and Rodgers. What do the Packers really think about Rodgers? What does Rodgers think is going to happen here? We really just don't know what's going to happen, and so I'm sort of sitting back waiting to see as everything gets laid out, as we finally figure out what's going to happen here at quarterback in 2023 for the Packers. But this is pretty interesting, and I think with Tom Silverstein, he is a very respected reporter who's been in Green Bay for a very long time, and so it does make you sort of wonder with this information that sometime last year, according to an NFL colleague, Brian Gutekunst was convinced that it was time to move from Rodgers to Jordan Love. And I think if you look back at the past season for the Packers, at that moment we were sitting in that losing streak, we're around 4-8, 5-8. Things weren't looking too great for the Packers, and there was that question among many Packers fans: should the Packers just move to Jordan Love, see what he has to offer? Aaron Rodgers is injured. The Packers didn't look like they had much to really play for, even though there was still that possibility of making the playoffs. There was a big idea among many fans that the Packers should give Jordan Love a shot to sort of see what he had and just give us more of an idea of what Jordan Love could potentially look like in the future. Of course, the Packers decided to stick with Aaron Rodgers through the entire season because there was that chance that they made the playoffs, and it happened. I mean, we had that chance all the way to the final season of the game. And my thought on the situation was let's give Rodgers, keep starting Rodgers until we're officially eliminated from playoff contention. Then I thought at that point, if you want to try Love, why not? Nothing to lose there. But with the Packers still in playoff contention, it made sense to stick with Rodgers. But I think when we look at, the Packers right now, with the Packers underperforming in 2022, Brian Gutekunst seemingly was ready to move on from Aaron Rodgers. And so the question is, does he still think this? We don't know. We don't know what Brian Gutekunst is thinking right now. And I think that one thing, of course, to keep in mind is just the fact that Brian Gutekunst drafted Jordan Love in the first round. I think he had lots of what people will think about Brian Gutekunst when it comes to his time in Green Bay as a GM. Lots of it comes down to what Jordan Love ends up becoming. Because in that time, in that draft, the Packers were still one of the best teams in the NFL, had just been to an NFC championship. And instead of loading up, maybe getting another weapon for Rodgers, which could have helped the next season, he drafts a guy who will only really add value to the team if Rodgers isn't there. And I understand the decision. He thought that, okay, maybe a guy wasn't there he wanted, so he drafts Jordan Love. But because of that big, bold decision to draft a quarterback at that time, I do think lots of the thought of what Brian Gutekunst has been as a GM for the Packers, that will really rely on what Jordan Love becomes. And so I really still think that Brian Gutekunst wants to see Jordan Love as a starter, and it seems that during the season last year, he was sort of ready to see what Jordan Love had and maybe move on from Rodgers. That's what Tom Silverstein reported here from the NFL colleague he talked with. And so if he did want to move on from Rodgers during last season, I don't know why he wouldn't at this point want to move on if he really thinks Love can be the future here in Green Bay. And so it just sort of, I think if you're looking at the probability of the Packers moving to Love, having this information, it at least seems like there would be more of a likelihood that if Gutekunst was in the past willing to move on to Love, that at this point he may be really willing to, move on from Rodgers, potentially trade him. And we really now can just sit back and wait and sort of see what happens, what Rodgers decides. He could retire, which I don't think is going to happen, but he still could retire. And so I guess in a sense, maybe Brian Gutekunst has that confidence in Jordan Love. I think that Jordan Love is going to be a great QB. Hopefully for the Packers, he is. And whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Jordan Love at QB in 2023 for the Packers, I still think this is a pretty competitive team. And so we'll get some answers hopefully soon, maybe in the next few weeks. But I wanted to cover this interesting information from Tom Silverstein that was reported a few days ago. But that is all I have for this video. I appreciate you guys watching as always, and I'll see you guys next time.